The day was winding down as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. Inside the small, cozy house, the air was filled with the warm scent of dinner. Ryan sat on the couch, flipping through a book, while his younger siblings played quietly with their toys on the carpet. His parents chatted in the kitchen, their voices calm and comforting. It was an ordinary evening, filled with the kind of peace they took for granted. But then, a sharp sound shattered the calm. It wasn't loud, but it was out of place, a rustling noise, followed by a low, distant growl. Everyone froze. Ryan's mother called out, "Did anyone hear that?" The children stopped playing, their eyes wide with curiosity and unease. Ryan stood up and moved to the window. The outside world looked the same. The garden, the trees, the path leading to the woods. But something felt different, as though the darkness outside was heavier than usual, pressing against the house. "What was that?" whispered his younger sister, clutching her stuffed toy tightly. No one had an answer. The family exchanged worried glances, their hearts pounding with an unspoken fear. The family gathered near the window, their curiosity mixing with unease. Ryan squinted into the shadows, trying to make out shapes in the dim light. His father, cautiously stepping outside with a flashlight, stopped abruptly. Scratches marred the front door, deep, jagged marks that hadn't been there before. Broken branches littered the porch as if something heavy had crashed through. "What could have done this?" Ryan's mother asked, her voice trembling. The flashlight beam swept across the yard. The trees swayed in the breeze, their shadows shifting like dark specters. Then they heard it, a guttural growl, closer this time. Ryan's father backed up, his expression unreadable but tense. Suddenly the family gasped. The flashlight caught a reflection in the darkness, two glowing eyes low to the ground, staring right at them. Before they could react, the creature emerged, a massive, snarling beast, its wild fur blending into the shadows. It paused just outside the window, its breath fogging the glass as it stared into the house. The children screamed, and Ryan's mother pulled them back. "It's looking right at us," she whispered in horror. The beast let out a deafening roar, and in an instant, chaos erupted. The creature smashed through the window, shards of glass scattering across the floor. The family scattered, each person running in a different direction, their screams echoing through the house. "Get to the back room," Ryan's father shouted, trying to keep everyone together. But fear had taken over, and no one listened. Ryan grabbed his younger sister's hand and pulled her toward the kitchen. His heart raced as he looked over his shoulder, seeing the animal thrash and snarl in the living room. It was destroying everything in its path, its massive claws leaving deep gouges in the furniture. "What do we do?" his mother cried, her voice trembling with panic. She tried to gather the children, but the beast's movement kept her at bay. Ryan's father held a broomstick, futilely waving it to distract the animal. "Stay calm," he yelled, though his own voice wavered. Ryan's mind raced. His younger siblings were crying, his parents were panicking, and the animal seemed unstoppable. He looked around the house, searching for anything that could help. But what could a boy do against a wild predator? Amidst the chaos, when his parents seemed frozen with fear and his younger siblings were crying uncontrollably, Ryan did something no one expected. Quiet, reserved Ryan, always the shy one in the family, suddenly became the calm center of the storm. He turned to his panicking little brother and sister, kneeling down to their level. "Listen, we're going to be okay," he said, his voice surprisingly steady. "I need you to trust me." His sister looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "What do we do?" She sobbed. Ryan looked at his parents, who were too afraid to act. "Mom, Dad, trust me. I'm going to get us out of this." His words were firm, with a conviction that was unlike anything they'd ever heard from him. His parents, though scared, nodded. Something in his voice told them he wasn't just saying words to comfort them. He had a plan. But what was it? Why was Ryan so confident? What was he planning to do when the animal was bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than any of them? Ryan quickly scanned the room, taking in the layout of the house, the broken window, the furniture in disarray. He could hear the animal growling loudly in the next room, still causing destruction as it hunted for the family. Ryan didn't panic. Instead, he observed. The beast was circling around the house, sniffing the air, its movements erratic. Ryan noted how the animal seemed distracted by the noise of the broken glass and chaos. He knew he needed to lure it away from the family's hiding spot. And quickly. Okay, he muttered to himself. He walked over to the pantry and grabbed a few cans. The idea hit him like a spark. He needed to make noise, something loud enough to grab the animal's attention. He'd need to move fast, though. His plan was risky. He would have to get close to the beast without being noticed. He would use the cans as makeshift distractions, throwing them into different corners of the house to confuse the animal. The goal was simple: draw it far enough away from the family so they could escape. But it was a dangerous game. One mistake, and they'd all be trapped. Ryan's heart raced as he crept closer to the door. He could hear the animal's growl, low and menacing, just outside the living room. He couldn't let it spot him. Holding his breath, he hurled the first can across the room, the loud clatter echoing through the house. The animal's head snapped toward the noise, its glowing eyes narrowing. For a moment, it hesitated, its powerful muscles tensing. Ryan's pulse quickened. Was it working? The animal stalked toward the sound, leaving the kitchen and moving into the hallway. Ryan threw another can to the opposite side, trying to mislead it further. The beast followed, but its eyes were wild, filled with rage. The plan seemed to be working until it wasn't. The animal's growls became louder, more frantic, and Ryan realized too late that he had underestimated the beast's instincts. As it moved farther into the house, it suddenly turned and charged back toward him. Ryan's heart skipped a beat as the massive creature appeared at the door. It was closing in fast, and there was nowhere to hide. Panic surged through him as he backed into the next room, but the animal wasn't giving up. It was coming for him. Ryan backed into a dark room, cornered with nowhere to go. His plan had worked, but now the animal had trapped him. Ryan's heart pounded as he pressed his back against the cold wall, trying to make himself as small as possible. The animal's hot breath was inches away, and he could feel the vibrations of its growls reverberating through the room. The beast's claws scraped the floor, its massive body moving in his direction. He needed to act fast. As the animal lunged, Ryan's survival instincts kicked in. He ducked just in time, narrowly avoiding the swipe of its claws. He stumbled back but kept his footing, his mind racing. Looking around the dark room, he spotted something. A broken chair leg, sharp at one end. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. He gripped the makeshift weapon tightly, trying to steady his breath. The animal circled him, its eyes glowing in the dim light. Ryan waited, calculating his next move. He had to outsmart it, not fight it head-on. The beast lunged again, and in that moment, Ryan darted to the side, narrowly avoiding its claws. He had slipped past it, just barely, but now he had the chance to make his move. Will this small item be enough to outsmart the beast? Ryan sprinted back into the main area of the house, his pulse racing. He could hear the animal still prowling in the shadows, but he had one goal now: get it away from his family. He threw another can, distracting the beast momentarily, and then motioned to his parents. "Get to the back room, lock the door behind you." His mother hesitated, but seeing the determination in his eyes, she nodded and rushed with the children to safety. Ryan didn't stop to see if they were locked away safely. His attention was solely on the animal. It was hunting, and he was its target. With the beast distracted, Ryan ran toward the living room. He had one shot at this. He quickly grabbed the broomstick and, with all his strength, swung it at the animal's face. The beast hissed in anger, distracted for just enough time for Ryan to make his move. He led the creature away from the back room, all the while hoping his family was safe behind the locked door. Ryan turned, glancing back. His family watched helplessly through a crack in the door, their eyes filled with fear and worry. He knew they were depending on him now, and he couldn't fail them. What would you do if you could only watch, unable to help? Ryan's mind was working quickly, piecing together a plan. He'd read about trapping wild animals before, but never thought he'd have to use that knowledge for real. He needed to buy some time and keep the animal away from his family. He rummaged through the house, finding items that could help: a rope, a chair, a heavy box. The pieces of his trap started to come together. He tied the rope to a heavy chair and placed the box nearby, knowing that if he could get the animal into the right spot, the weight of the box would fall on it, trapping it in place. The beast's growls were getting louder, and Ryan could hear it circling the house, getting closer to him again. He quickly set the trap and then hid in a corner, watching intently. The animal approached, sniffing the air. Ryan held his breath, praying the trap would work. The beast moved closer and closer, then finally stepped into the trap's path. The chair wobbled, the box teetered, and then everything fell. The trap worked, but Ryan wasn't sure how long it would hold. Will the trap hold, or will it backfire and make things worse? Ryan's heart sank as the box only partially trapped the beast. It growled and thrashed, trying to free itself. The rope had been strong, but the beast was stronger. The animal was pulling with all its might, and Ryan knew the trap wouldn't hold for long. With no time to waste, Ryan made a split-second decision. He dropped the broomstick and picked up the broken chair leg once again. He couldn't let the animal get free. It was a matter of life or death. He steeled himself for the final confrontation. The animal broke free, charging toward Ryan with incredible speed. His heart pounded in his chest as he faced the beast one-on-one. No escape this time. But then Ryan saw something. The animal's eyes were not just angry, they were desperate. He remembered something from his books about animal behavior. Sometimes showing no fear or even making a loud noise could scare them off. Ryan stood tall, brandishing the chair leg as if it were a weapon, and shouted loudly, hoping to intimidate the beast. The animal hesitated, startled by his sudden bravery. At that moment, Ryan realized the animal wasn't a monster. It was just scared, just like him. He used his calm, his confidence, and his voice to scare the animal away, and surprisingly, it backed off. Ryan discovers a way to tame or scare off the animal instead of killing it. Will Ryan survive this final confrontation? The animal, its growls now fading, slowly retreated into the shadows of the house. Ryan, panting and exhausted, stood still, his heart still racing. He couldn't believe what had just happened. It had been a close call, but for now, the danger seemed to have passed. But then, Ryan heard something that made his stomach twist. Distant growls. The sound came from deep in the woods. Were there more animals? Was this the only one? His eyes widened as he looked toward the back door, uncertain if their safety had truly been secured. What if the animal had returned to get help? What if it wasn't alone? The family watched through the crack in the door, unsure of what would happen next. They were safe, for now, but the tension still hung in the air. What if it's not the only one? Are they truly safe? As the animal finally disappeared into the woods, Ryan let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding. He walked over to the back room where his family was huddled, their faces full of relief. His mother hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. "You saved us, Ryan. You really saved us." Ryan smiled weakly. He didn't feel like a hero, just a kid who had done what needed to be done. But as his younger siblings looked up to him with admiration, he realized that the fear he had felt earlier had changed him. He was no longer the shy, quiet boy who sat back and let others take charge. He was the one who stepped forward when it mattered most, and that one moment of bravery had turned him into the hero his family needed. The night passed quietly, but the family knew things would never be the same. Ryan's parents made sure the house was secured, and they stayed alert for any sign of the animal's return. But even as the tension eased, Ryan felt different. He wasn't the same person who had been afraid and unsure just hours before. This experience had taught him something powerful, that he was capable of more than he thought. He had faced fear and conquered it, not by force, but by using his mind and his courage. As the family sat together the next morning, they were stronger, more united. They knew that no matter what came next, they could face it together. What would you do in Ryan's place? Could you be the hero your family needs?